Michigan. First Alert Meteorologist Diane with a Monday update as we've had some nice weather here to start the day, but you are going to find we do have some storms that we are going to be tracking. So that's why this 2 o'clock timing very much ideal so that we can get you the latest updates and make sure that you are well aware of what we are tracking. So we do want to first alert you that some storms are going to be coming in later on this afternoon and into this evening. So we're mainly going to be discussing what's happening into your forecast and making sure that you are prepared for the storm potential. I just know it's quite nice outside. I'll share a view here of our Birch Run camera. You can see just some clouds that have started to bubble up, but we had some sunshine earlier. It's also been warming. Look at our current temperatures. You will also find those are currently sitting into the 70s. So this is going to be a pretty important thing to note as those storms come in. We do have 76 in Saginaw, 77 in Midland and Gladwin. We're at 71 in Houghton Lake, 74 in Mount Pleasant. We have 73 in Bad Axe. So it's definitely a little bit of a warmer afternoon for some of us, and we're kind of happy to see some summer weather here. It's June after all, but with that we can at times have a little bit of that storm action. So as we wait a moment here, we're going to have some folks coming in. Actually, I just got that push notification, so make sure that you have the First Alert weather app and also the TV5 News app. So even though we meet here every day, Monday through Friday at 2 o'clock, you can always get that friendly reminder on your cell phone as that dings in and gives you the latest and kind of that reminder that we want to hang out with you here for a few minutes. So as we have people who are joining in, I am going to get started with our forecast. So this is a look at our sky tracker. And the rainfall that we have, you're going to find that that was actually located in Canada. So last night when it was coming through, it was a little bit steady at times, but it was a nice rain. It was a kind of a healthy rain coming through. I was happy to see not a lot of thunder and lightning. We didn't have any severe weather associated with that line, but it did come through right around bedtime. So if you like to have a little bit of noise on, Mother Nature was kind of able to make sure that you got some pretty good sleep last night, setting you up for hopefully what is going to be a nice week ahead. But we are actually finding ourselves in the dry slot of the storm. So you will actually see that that is going to be where the dry air gets pulled in. So this is kind of where it's setting up. We do have a little bit of rain that's starting to come in, but this is why we were looking at some sunshine, some clearing, and then we do have the storms towards our west, that those are going to start to move in for us. So we are going to be keeping an eye to our weather further west, but zooming in here, we do have, now that we're headed into the 2 o'clock hour, some showers that are starting to develop for us. We don't have any lightning. I do have the lightning detection on, but we don't have any lightning associated. So these are just some showers. They're already starting to bubble. We've seen some cumulus clouds developing. So these are going to continue the clouds to grow a little bit taller, and that's going to allow then these storms to start to take off. So this is just kind of the beginning. Make sure you're checking radar with your First Alert weather app, as that's going to be pretty helpful for you. I'll pull that QR code up here so you can kind of get the latest on what we're watching. But we are going to find that we do still have a line of thunderstorms that is off towards our west. So that's really where you're going to want to kind of be zooming out your radar a little bit, because the line that we have here just coming across Lake Michigan is going to kind of be the main event of our storm chances for this afternoon. So we've actually watched this line develop pretty quickly in the last couple of hours. It really wasn't there around noon, and then 1 o'clock we started to get some returns on radar, and now 2 o'clock we see some pretty good thunderstorm activity on the south side of Milwaukee, and these storms are going to come over the water. We'll see how well they handle it with Lake Michigan. It's always kind of a wild card to see how these storms are going to survive, and then once they come off the water, how will they do further inland, what kind of environment. So we are going to find that these storms are going to be headed in. I'm already kind of watching them create that line, and that's why we are going to be watching our main concerns to be hail and some damaging winds. So that's going to kind of be the part that we have to watch out for. I will share an update. This actually came in after our noon newscast. So if you were joining us over the air at noon, happy to have you there, but we're also thrilled to have you here at 2 o'clock because we had this update come in from the Storm Prediction Center. So a lot of us were just in that dark green, which is a marginal risk, kind of a 1 out of 5 as far as that threat level is concerned. But then we had, with some later data and kind of some nowcasting, the Storm Prediction Center did increase up to a 2 out of 5, that slight risk. So that does mean that some scattered severe storms are possible We're seeing that from Mount Pleasant, Alma, Chesaning, towards Wasso, Flint, through the Tri-Cities as well. That'll include Midland, Bay City, and Saginaw. So we even have some of that extending into western Tuscola counties. So we are watching mainly that area kind of further south for us to be looking at an environment that's able to support those storms that we had over Lake Michigan. So just kind of the orientation, the timing, it's all going to matter as we go into the afternoon. So let's hop here into the latest hour by hour forecast. So you will find that we have the couple of showers that those are going to start to kind of bubble up for us. So those will be spotting, not necessarily severe weather at this point. But once we get into the afternoon around 3-4 o'clock, we are going to finally start to kind of reach a little more of our peak heating. And that's going to allow us then to have some of these showers and thunderstorms come in. One thing that I do also want to point out is that these are highly scattered, so it's not going to be just a widespread rain as this comes through. But I am going to be watching kind of this line. Now, this is just one of our model outputs. I'll share another one with you because we have a little more time here on digital to do that. But you will see even going into the 5 o'clock hour that we do have that rainfall that comes in. This is that storm potential. At this point, I'm anticipating more of a line to be moving through. So we will continue to track that strong storm potential even as we go towards 7 o'clock. So if you were going to grill out tonight and maybe kind of plan a barbecue, you're going to want to keep an eye to radar, or maybe just move that to Tuesday. That's looking like a nicer day for us to see some drier weather. But the good news is that as this storm moves into the thumb area, we just don't have an environment that's as supportive. Also, the sun is going to be starting to set, so we lose some of that storm energy. So that's why we are only finding that yellow kind of cutting into western Tuscola County and not in and across the thumb. But also the good news is that the storm should start to exit by about 10 o'clock tonight. So that means as you're headed off to bed, you won't have to worry about severe weather or being able to get watches and warnings during the night. So this is kind of a setup where we like to see that stronger storm potential move out before we're fast asleep, because that's when it can get a little bit tricky. Now, we do still have more to talk about regarding that storm potential, but I do want to take a quick break, kind of reset here, and then we will join back in about 1 minute. And welcome back to your First Alert Weather Desk. We are continuing to watch those thunderstorms coming back in, and we are going to find that these storms do have the potential to get close to that severe criteria. For those who don't know what classifies a thunderstorm as severe, you would need about 60-mile-per-hour winds or hail that's 1 inch in diameter, or even starting to see some rotation. Thankfully, with the storms that we have today, I'm not seeing a lot of rotation coming into play. So let's dive right back into that forecast. Our sky tracker here, so kind of showing some of those storms that are off towards our west, and those are going to be headed in. Now, we will find as we kind of zoom back in here, I want to get over to this line. So kind of when we see a line like this, it has a little bit of kind of an arch system to it. That is going to be what kind of is concerning regarding the winds, because that line there is going to allow for, when it kind of bows through, for it to push a lot of wind as it comes out at us. So when we start to see something that starts to organize a line, and then if it really starts to kind of get more of like a U shape, or just even kind of having the center of the line kind of push out ahead of the rest of it and creating a bow, like if you were doing some archery, that's when we start to see the signal that some strong winds are going to be possible. So again, that's why we are watching out here for the potential of hail and mainly gusty winds. That's going to be that main concern. Again, that environment that we have is more favorable towards the Tri-Cities, coming in towards the Vehicle City and then further south and west. So even Lansing, Grand Rapids, Jackson areas are even under that, that yellow risk. So this is what we're going to be watching as we go here through the next couple of hours. As I had mentioned, a lot of that rain is still over the water, so we still have a little bit of time, but some of these showers are starting to pick up here a little bit closer to home. Now, as promised, we had kind of talked about one of our weather models, and when we were looking at it, it was a little bit more broken and scattered. Now, the one disclaimer that I will give you when we look at this weather model, I do kind of like the line and the orientation of it a little bit better, just because it's a little more put together. It's not as scattered or broken. But as I go through here, you're going to see a lot of bright colors. And so this model, kind of like contouring the color palette within it, is a little bit brighter and a little bit more vivid. So it's going to look a little bit stronger than what we actually are anticipating. So I just want to give you kind of that disclaimer so that you are aware. So you can see here by 4 o'clock, it still has that line just kind of coming into our viewpoint around the Ludington area. And then we just have still some of these pop-up showers that we've been seeing closer towards the bay. So we're going to probably get a little bit of play here off the lake. But here by 6 o'clock, this line is starting to come through. It's kind of pushing some of those stronger storms you can see towards Ionia, into the Lansing area. And of course, that's going to be coming right up in towards Shiawassee and Gratiot counties. And we'll continue to kind of watch that as it works its way in. We're going to kind of be the last locations where we do have to monitor for some of that stronger storms and just the environment that's able to kind of hold on until our sunset. But as this comes through, you can see it kind of creates and really gets that line going as we head towards 7-8 o'clock tonight. So even though this looks quite colorful, again, just remember some of the colorings are a little bit more than what it actually needs to be. But I do like that it kind of brings that line orientation in for us. So that is going to kind of signal that main threat of those damaging and gusty winds. Another thing to note is that in something like this, you would have straight line winds. So that means that the winds are not going to be rotating, they're not going to be spinning. So if we were to have any damage and you saw damage going in different directions, it could be more of a downburst. So that would be where you have a lot of winds and they fall down to the ground and then they push out when they get there, to where in this situation, you just have a lot of winds that are pushing out ahead of that line. So it's going to kind of knock down anything in its path. So just some things to keep in mind when you're watching. If you have any damage, hopefully though, you don't have any of that. We don't need to clean up. We've had, our own moments of cleaning up, especially with the tornadoes that we had in Atlas Township, Layton Corners, and even in St. Charles at the end of May. And so we are going to watch this line work its way through. Thankfully, you can see here by 10, 11 o'clock, it starts to leave. It's out towards the water. So that's the one thing that is consistent in models, is that we do have that all clear. But again, you had that line in our one model that kind of showed the line of thunderstorms coming in. I'll bring that up. So this is 8 o'clock. And then in the other weather model, 8 o'clock looks like this. So this is kind of why it's tricky as a meteorologist, to where we have to go collect all that data, put it together, and give you the best forecast. So we kind of know what some of these models, when they're what their strong suits are and maybe what they're not so strong with. And then we are able to go and kind of do a deep dive in the data, kind of see what they're outputting, kind of saying, okay, this looks a little more realistic, this doesn't. So that's what we're going to kind of be watching for here into the afternoon, and also just now casting, seeing what we're working with this line. As I pull it back up here, and just kind of seeing how some of them are initializing with this line coming in, it's picking up some good development over the water. So this is just something to consider. Some of the models that maybe don't have that early development, that might not be something that we're really going to be putting a lot of stock into as we go into the afternoon. So of course, a lot of this is some now casting and just kind of taking it as we go through the moments. But we will also find that some of that data, of course, can be a little bit erroneous, and some can actually be spot on. So that's why we're here, the meteorologists. We kind of smooth all that out. We do the hard work so that you don't have to worry about it. You just have to worry about your daily routine and making sure everything kind of stays on track. And especially if you were grilling, then you got to figure out an indoor plan here for tonight. Now, we will also be tracking this line of thunderstorms as it comes in. Again, the main concerns would be some hail and some gusty winds. And let's also look at those temperatures another time here, just because you will find that it's still warm enough. Mid-70s is kind of a good environment for us to start kind of supporting these storms. You can see a little bit of that green on the western side. So we'll see how the storms kind of handle that. That might be able to kind of push those storms further south. and then get them closer towards about 96. And that's why we would be watching those to kind of still be north of Lansing and kind of coming into that yellow zone that we were showing on our Storm Prediction Center outlook. But we do also have a little bit of smoke that we are keeping in I2. So we're going to take another quick break, kind of get organized here, and we'll be right back to still talk about some wildfire smoke. Welcome back. First Alert Meteorologist Diane Phillips here. We're going to continue kind of keeping an eye on the wildfire smoke. We will also recap before we wrap up and have another look at that severe weather potential for tonight. But since we are watching some of that wildfire smoke, you are going to see that here, that we still are going to have that in the forecast. I anticipate, just because it is still highly hanging around the area and widely dispersed throughout the Great Lakes region, that we're going to continue to see smoke here. And some of it, yes, is still going to remain closer towards the ground. You will continue to kind of see some of those greens come in, so that's still kind of on the thin side, but maybe not as thin as what it was over the weekend. But we at least have a chance of kind of seeing it behind the rainfall that comes in this afternoon and this evening, for it to clear out a little bit better as we go into tomorrow morning. So we're hoping, but don't get too excited, it just doesn't last very long. We still have some lighter smoke that's going to kind of be funneling back in. What we really need to kind of work this out is we need high pressure, and we just kind of need that dome to sit over top of us and for a couple of days, because then it can kind of take some of that smoke out of here and finally clear it out. I don't see that set up in the forecast for quite a while. It's actually quite an active pattern, and with multiple systems that can come in, and even some smaller ones that can come in here or there, that's just going to make it tricky to kind of get that smoke cleared out. So just be a little bit patient here. We're still going to find that we have some lighter smoke that's going to be coming through. And so that's going to just kind of be something that we have to work with here through the summer. I know it's not ideal. I know if you're a little bit more sensitive to it, it doesn't make you feel good. It probably bothers your sinuses. But we do want to first alert you that we see at times that it is at least getting thinner, but it is going to continue to be something that we are monitoring for. Another check of that full 7-day forecast. Let's take a peek at this, where we have 70s here this week. We do have 78 this afternoon, so we still have a little more heat to pick up. We'll be watching to see how well that does, though, with the cloud cover that's already starting to come in. A little bit cooler tomorrow, but a very nice day. We have dry weather, partly cloudy skies, a lot of sunshine coming in on Wednesday. It'll be breezy at times, but it'll kind of be a typical summer day. We got highs around 84 degrees, and there will be a little bit of humidity. I have dew points that are going to be coming into the 60s, so I know we haven't had a lot of humidity, but Wednesday, if you're not a fan of summer weather, this is going to be the day where you're maybe going to want to turn on that AC, kind of keep that running, because we have 84, a little bit of humidity, some sunshine. So it's definitely going to be feeling like summer outside. But once we go into Thursday, it starts to drop back off again. We're going to be going into the mid 70s, and we really kind of cool it down for the weekend. We still have some upper 60s on Friday, low 70s for Saturday and Sunday. So it's definitely a little bit cooler. I know we still got graduation parties that are going on. We have weddings that are also happening on weekends. So there's always a lot, and even a lot of local events are also going to be taking place. Even as we go later in the week, we'll be talking about how the forecast is going to shape up for a lot of the happenings here in mid-Michigan. But you are going to find some rain chances do come in Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now, I do anticipate some changes because the pattern, as I had mentioned, is pretty active. So we still need to nail down some timing and the coverage. That Thursday rain is more along a stationary front, and those can be very finicky in the forecast. Those can kind of move north or south. They can kind of slow down, speed up. They really have a mind of their own, and they're very challenging for us. So that's why we do have some scattered showers in for Thursday, but hopefully we can do a little bit of fine tuning on that. Going into Friday, that does look to be a little bit of a better chance. Some of the early afternoon data I was able to look at before we started our hangout here at the desk was that it might be a little bit later into the day. So if maybe Friday nights it's s'more night by the bonfire, you're going to want to keep an eye to the forecast. Even into Saturday, it's a little more isolated. But again, if you have plans, we'll be keeping an eye to it. Now, I do want to recap once again the severe weather threat, because I know some of you have been mentioning that we are concerned with severe weather. So I know some of you had asked, how does that severe weather risk look? Well, this is at about a 2 out of 5 for the Tri-Cities through western Genesee County into Gratiot County. And we're also seeing that in the southern portion of Isabella County. So we are going to continue to kind of see that level 2 there. Main threats would be wind and hail. So I don't really see anything that has that rotation component going. So that tornado threat is pretty low, if not zero, with this setup. Again, mainly the wind is really what I'm concerned with as this line is going to be coming through. So it's still definitely a situation where you should be weather aware. We're really watching to see how this line develops over the water and how it's going to survive coming into our environment here. The reason why that yellow does not extend into the thumb is we just at that point are not maintaining our storm energy. By then the sun is starting to set, it's getting a little bit cooler, we're kind of seeing those temperatures drop off, and that is going to then allow some of those storms to fall apart. So that's kind of been the continual trend here. I know some of you have said, oh, we have events tonight, you have a car show tonight. It's going to be pretty tricky with that, especially with this line coming in. If it's a little spotty, okay, but still I would just have a backup plan or just kind of be ready to be moving in. So that was kind of a look there. I'm kind of looking at some of the comments that some of you have been sharing on Facebook, because again, we are on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we are at WNEM.com. Of course, one of you had asked, what radar am I using? Of course, I'm using your First Alert Weather app. That's going to kind of be the best tool. There's also a lot of layers on there. Hopefully sometime we can kind of hang out and go over the app here on the desk. But right now we got to talk about some of that storm potential as that is going to be coming in this afternoon. So I do want to pull up our radar again here, because this is going to be very similar to what you have in your cell phone. So let me pull that back up. So you are going to find that we just have some of these spotty showers. We actually have our first thunderstorm coming in towards Houghton Lake. So we are going to continue to see some of these storms kind of bubble up here. So this is, now that it has started, it is going to continue. We also have another cell coming in towards a Midland, and more cells that are starting to pop up around Watertown, even just west of Deckerville and west of Applegate. So Carsonville in Sanilac County, you are going to be seeing some of that rain here soon headed in your direction. So these storms are going to kind of bubble up. They should be short-lived because thankfully they are moving fast, but we are going to continue to watch the line that we have further west. So the storm potential out of Kenosha, just east of Milwaukee, that's coming through. That's going to be something that we are going to be watching for as that comes in. So again, this is going to be kind of the best line, our best chance for some stronger storms. And really when that line starts to form, we would just be watching out for some gusty winds. And that's going to be some straight line winds. Nothing rotating, nothing tornadic in that line. But as this energy, kind of this lift that's coming through the upper parts of the atmosphere comes through, that is going to allow us then to be seeing some storms. So we'll be watching for that closely. Now, we had kind of talked about the differences on what we have in our weather model. So again, we are going to be watching here the time frame now with some of these pop-ups, and then it really starts to kick off around 3 o'clock. Now, if you're saying, is this really going to start at 3 where I'm living? It really just depends, because it's kind of like popcorn out there on radar currently. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint between our 17 counties that we cover if it's actually going to rain at your house at 3 o'clock. So it's a little bit tricky, have a little grace there. But we will find that as this line comes in, it is going to be closer towards the evening commute and towards dinner that's going to start to enter mid-Michigan. So that's when we'll be watching for that storm potential as that comes in. So again, this is the main line. When you're on your First Alert Weather app, keep an eye to this, of course. But don't forget that we do still have some of these cells that are popping up a little bit closer towards home. And these are, so far, nothing severe, but we are seeing a little bit of lightning in the cell that we have just north of Houghton Lake. And then we just have some showers that are coming through the Tri-Cities and then through Sanilac County as well. Now, we will have the latest updates coming up at 4 o'clock. I will be on TV5 then with an updated 7-day forecast and another radar check at that point, because we're going to be watching this here through the evening. So make sure you tune in to TV5 over the air at 4 o'clock. Also, that First Alert Weather app is going to be a pretty helpful tool to kind of keep an eye on radar here. So one more time, I know I kind of flashed this a lot, but radar is just kind of the best way to stay on top of it to make sure that you're inside before any of these showers and storms kind of pop up. So make sure that you have that on your phone and kind of stay connected with that as we go throughout the afternoon and evening. Again, that severe weather risk is there, but it is going to be on the lower side. We are going to be looking at overall some routine thunderstorms that could reach severe criteria. So we will be keeping an eye on it. Again, stay connected with your First Alert weather team. We'll have you covered here as we go into the afternoon, but make sure you're staying weather aware, and we will see you, of course, back here tomorrow at 2 p.m.